Now, today marks 45 years since the first Britons conquered the treacherous south face of Everest. Doug Scott was the first of them to stand on the summit, along with his teammate Dougal Haston. Fiona Trott has been to Carrick Fell in the Lake District, where Doug used to train for all his expeditions.
Congratulations from every single one of us. Well done.
Joy, but also relief. Sir Chris Bonington led the 1975 Everest expedition. Hours before, he thought it might be a rescue mission. But Doug Scott and Dougal Haston had made it. They were the first to ascend the southwest face and reach the summit of Everest. Today, a summit in Cumbria sets the scene for a different kind of Everest challenge. Some of these climbers want to match its height. It will take several trips. Among them, Doug Scott's son, Ewan.
And here we are. This is Ewan, hitting the high point. Number one, done.
And I'm just wondering where...
Back at base, just as he did 45 years ago, Sir Chris keeps a watchful eye.
They've been captured basically by, I think, the concept and the achievement of what we did and what Doug particularly did. I think in a way to actually be able to celebrate that climb and celebrate what he achieved then is particularly meaningful.
People around the world have been marking this Everest anniversary, climbing their stairs to raise money for the charity Doug Scott set up. It helps the Nepalese community who supported the expedition. Doug himself took part. He's recently been diagnosed with cancer and is at home. Back at Carrick Fell, his son Ewan and his friends finally make their descent.
Very tired and very happy to be over. The grueling task of climbing Everest is so much more. He's very inspirational, and I think that he would be very proud and very happy of what we've done today.
Carrick Fell is where Doug Scott used to train. Today's climb has been a fitting tribute to his achievement 45 years ago. Fiona Trott, BBC News, Cumbria.
Today marks 45 years since the first Britons conquered Everest and the first ever ascent to the notoriously difficult southwest face.
Doug Scott was the first Briton from the team to stand on the summit, along with teammate Dougal Haston. Well, Fiona Trott is at Carrick Fell in the Lake District for us this morning, where Doug used to train for all his expeditions. Fiona, how much training are you getting in?
Not as much, but what a great place to train. It's an absolutely beautiful spot, isn't it? And what an achievement 45 years ago as Doug Scott and Dougal Haston ascended the southwest face. An oxygen tank failed, but they made the summit. On the way back down, they had to camp out without cover in temperatures around minus 50 degrees. The team below weren't sure if they'd make it.
Risking their lives to make history.
Working hard. I reckon they're getting towards the end of their first bottle of oxygen.
Sir Chris Bonington led the Everest expedition in 1975. Doug Scott and Dougal Haston were the first to ascend the southwest face.
Hello, Doug. It's
Great to hear you. Did you make it? Over. Congratulations from every single one of us. Well done.
To celebrate that achievement 45 years on, a very different summit.
Gosh, now I know what it's like to have been going up to the top camp on Everest in 1975.
People across the world have been joining in, climbing their stairs 20 times to raise money for the charity Doug Scott set up. They've even made their own snow. Doug Scott himself has taken part. He was diagnosed with cancer on the first day of lockdown and is at home with his family. It isn't quite Everest, but Carrick Fell in Cumbria is the setting for today's anniversary ascent. It's where Doug used to train, a fitting tribute to his achievement 45 years ago.
So we got a little problem with the sound there. I tell you, it's almost worth staying with the images because it looks so stunning there. I'm not sure if we're going to rejoin Fiona there, but what we've got there, as you can see, and apologies to everyone because we can't hear what the guys are saying there, but we've got the drone up and it's early, so it's still a little bit gloomy there, but you do get a real sense of the place there, which is absolutely stunning.
And the reason Fiona's there is because there's a new Everest challenge. So she's at the, obviously the training place, of course, where Doug Scott was training, one of the climbers. The Everest challenge is now asking the public to collectively climb the equivalent height of Everest, which is 8,848 metres, on their own staircases, to coincide with the 45th anniversary of that historic summit of Everest by the British team. 1975, that was done. Such a long time ago. And it was the first ever ascent of that really difficult southwest face, and it was Doug Scott, of course, who was the first Briton from the team to stand on the summit.
So today marks 45 years since the first Britons conquered Everest and the first ever ascent of the notoriously difficult southwest face.
Doug Scott was the first Briton from the team to stand on the summit in 1975, along with teammate Dougal Haston. The expedition was led by Sir Chris Bonington. Now, earlier in the summer, some of Britain's most illustrious mountaineers were seeking volunteers for a new Everest challenge, urging the public to collectively climb the equivalent height of 8,848 metres on their own staircases to raise money for charity.
So in the next hour, we'll be at beautiful Carrick Fell in the Lake District. There you go. Look at that image there. It gives you a sense of what that looks like. The first, that was where Doug Scott, the first Briton to stand on the summit, used to train for all those exhibitions. It's worth taking a moment to linger over that, isn't it?
Just beautiful.
Isn't that glorious?
Isn't that?
We'll be there a little later on. We'll see more.
Today marks 45 years since the first Britons conquered Everest and the first ever ascent of the notoriously difficult southwest face.
Doug Scott was the first Briton from the team to stand on the summit, along with teammate Dougal Haston. Fiona Trott is at Carrick Fell in the Lake District for us this morning. Beautiful surroundings there. And that, Fiona, where was Doug did his training, is that right?
That's right, yes. And today, to mark the anniversary, people are going to be climbing that fell. They want to reach the same height in metres as Everest. So at home, during the pandemic, some of them have been climbing their stairs hundreds of times. And today, to make up the metres, they're going to be climbing that fell 5 times, all to pay tribute to those brave mountaineers.
Risking their lives to make history.
Working hard. I reckon they're getting towards the end of their first bottle of oxygen.
Sir Chris Bonington led the Everest expedition in 1975. Doug Scott and Dougal Haston were the first to ascend the southwest face.
Hello, Doug. It's great to hear you. Did you make it? Over. Congratulations from every single one of us. Well done.
To celebrate that achievement 45 years on, a very different summit.
Gosh, now I know what it's like to have been going up to the top camp on Everest in 1975.
People across the world have been joining in, climbing their stairs 20 times to raise money for the charity Doug Scott set up.
I did my next one out.
They've even made their own snow. Doug Scott himself has taken part. He was diagnosed with cancer on the first day of lockdown and is at home with his family. It isn't quite Everest, but Carrick Fell in Cumbria is the setting for today's anniversary ascent. It's where Doug used to train, a fitting tribute to his achievement 45 years ago.
Let's speak now to the man who led that expedition in 1975, Sir Chris Bonington. When you look back at it now, that moment, they disappeared out of view, and you were really concerned about them at one stage because they hadn't made as much progress as you'd hoped. Were you really worried about them?
Well, inevitably, because we last saw they'd vanished into the upper summit gully. We were actually at advanced base down on the glacier, and we didn't see them again, and we're worried about that. And what in actual fact had happened was that there was a lot of snow in that gully, and also they had a bit of trouble with one of their oxygen sets. And then at about 4:30 in the evening, it was Nick Escort suddenly saw them through, had telescopes, and he suddenly saw them in the distance, and just immense moment of excitement. And he said, look, they're there. And then a moment of worry, because yes, they were there, and then they were going uphill still. So at that stage, we realized that they were going to be bivouac. They were going to be caught by the night.
So they were going to have to be essentially camping out with no cover.
Yes, and that is the last we saw of them. We didn't see them reach the top. And so I had a sleepless night that night. And then they had that very, very high bivouac. And then the next morning, when they got back to the top camp, and that was where the second summit bid was moving into position, and we got the radio call from there, and I was, it's just a sense of relief and joy, and I cried my eyes out. I was so excited.
And to camp out with no cover, minus 50-degree temperatures, you probably thought that you were going to be on a rescue mission.
We did at that stage. They're both superb mountaineers, and they knew how to look after themselves, and they dug themselves a tiny...
So it's really, thank you very much for sharing those memories with us. I'm so sorry we have to leave it there, but good luck to the rest of them climbing there today.
Beautiful scenery there, wonderful stories as well. You're watching BBC Breakfast. Time now is 8:59.